Over the years, Arsenal have had some of the greatest players the football world has ever seen. Thierry Henry, Dennis Bergkamp, Patrick Vieira, legends who helped define entire eras of football. But while Arsenal created iconic teams under Arsene Wenger, they also missed out on some unbelievable talent. Players who came incredibly close to wearing the famous red and white. So what happened? Let's get into it. In 2017, Arsenal had a genuine chance to sign Kylian Mbappe before he became one of the biggest stars in world football. At the time, Mbappe was still only a teenager at Monaco. But after helping the French side reach a Champions League semi-final, Europe's elite were lining up to sign him. Real Madrid wanted him, PSG wanted him, Manchester City were interested, and somehow Arsenal were right in the middle of the race. Arsene Wenger was determined to try and make it happen. According to reports, Wenger personally visited Mbappe's family home and spent hours speaking to both Kylian and his parents about the project at Arsenal. The idea was clear: follow in Thierry Henry's footsteps, become the next great French superstar at the Emirates. And for a while, Arsenal genuinely believed they had a chance. But there were major problems. By 2017, Arsenal were no longer competing for Champions League or Premier League titles, the way they had during their peak years under Wenger. At the same time, PSG entered the race with enormous financial power behind them. The opportunity to stay in France, play for PSG and become the face of French football eventually proved impossible to resist. PSG first signed Mbappe on loan before completing a deal worth around 180 million euros, making him one of the most expensive players in football history. For Arsenal fans though, it became another painful reminder of just how close the club came to signing another generational talent. Now let's go back to 2003. Arsenal came extremely close to signing Yaya Toure. The Ivorian midfielder spent months around the club and looked set to join his brother Kolo in North London. Wenger loved his physicality, technical ability and versatility, believing he could become one of the best midfielders in Europe. But the transfer collapsed because of work permit complications. At the time, England had strict rules for non-European players. To qualify for a work permit, players needed to have played at least 75% of matches for their national team. Yaya didn't meet those requirements, and despite Arsenal trying to find a solution, the move eventually fell apart. Instead, Toure moved elsewhere before eventually joining Barcelona, where he developed into one of Europe's top midfielders. But it was at Manchester City where he truly changed football history, dominating Premier League midfields with a combination of strength, technique and goals rarely seen from a central midfielder. Years later, Wenger admitted failing to sign Yaya Toure was one of his biggest regrets, because Arsenal didn't just miss out on a good player, they missed out on a potential replacement of Patrick Vieira. This next one is infamous. In 2013, Arsenal made one of the most infamous transfer bids football has ever seen. Luis Suarez was already one of the deadliest strikers in Europe after scoring 30 goals for Liverpool, and Arsenal desperately wanted an elite forward to take them back into title contention. Arsenal had believed they discovered something interesting. Suarez's contract reportedly contained a clause stating that if a club offered more than 40 million, Liverpool would be forced to inform the player and begin discussions. Arsenal believed they'd found a loophole, so they submitted a bid worth 40 million plus £1. The idea was simple: trigger the clause, force Liverpool to negotiate, convince Suarez to join Arsenal. But Liverpool completely disagreed with Arsenal's interpretation of the contract. Instead of negotiating, they rejected the offer immediately and reportedly found the entire situation hilarious. Liverpool's owner famously joked, "What are they smoking over at the Emirates?" The deal quickly collapsed, and Arsenal became the target of jokes across football. Suarez stayed at Liverpool for another incredible season, nearly winning the Premier League title and almost single-handedly before eventually joining Barcelona. There he formed the legendary MSN trio alongside Messi and Neymar and became one of the best strikers of his generation. For Arsenal though, it was another brutal near miss, because for a brief moment they believed they'd finally found the world-class striker they'd been missing since Thierry Henry. Talking of strikers, back in 2000, Arsenal had the chance to sign a young Zlatan Ibrahimovic long before he became a global superstar. At the time, Zlatan was still an unknown teenager, playing in Sweden, but Wenger's scouting network had already identified him as a special talent. Wenger invited the striker to London to take a closer look and potentially finalise the transfer. Everything seemed to be moving in the right direction. Arsenal even prepared a shirt with Zlatan's name on the back, but then things went wrong almost immediately. Wenger wanted Zlatan to complete a trial before agreeing to sign, something Arsenal often did with young players, to properly assess their ability and personality. Zlatan hated the idea, confident to the point of arrogance. Even as a teenager, he reportedly felt insulted that he needed to prove himself, and famously said Zlatan doesn't do auditions. And just like that, the move fell through. Zlatan joined Ajax, where he developed into one of the most entertaining entertaining and dominant forwards football has ever seen. Arsenal had the chance to sign him before the world knew his name and lost him because neither side was willing to compromise. Now, this is probably the worst of them all, because Arsenal's biggest missed opportunity came in 2003, before the Ballon d'Or awards, before Real Madrid, before becoming one of the greatest players football has ever seen. Cristiano Ronaldo was incredibly close to joining Arsenal. Wenger bought the young Sporting Lisbon winger to Arsenal's training ground, and the club was seriously interested in signing him. Ronaldo even posed in an Arsenal shirt during his visit. At the time, Arsenal was searching for a young talent who could develop into a future superstar, and Wenger immediately saw Ronaldo's potential: explosive pace, skills, confidence, fearlessness. But there was one major problem. Sporting demanded around £12 million, a huge fee for an unproven teenager in 2003. Arsenal hesitated over the cost. Manchester United didn't. Everything changed after Ronaldo played against United in a pre-season friendly for Sporting. United's players were so impressed that they reportedly urged Ferguson to sign him immediately. Ferguson moved quickly, agreed to pay the fee, and completed the deal before Arsenal could react. Ronaldo became a Manchester United icon, won multiple Champions League, claiming Ballon d'Ors, breaking goal-scoring records, and went on to define an entire generation alongside Lionel Messi. For Arsenal fans, though, it remains one of football's greatest what-ifs, because if Wenger had acted faster, Cristiano Ronaldo may have become the next superstar of the Invincible era instead of a Manchester United legend. Looking back now, it's honestly difficult to believe how close Arsenal came to signing some of football's greatest players. Mbappe, Torre, Suarez, Zlatan, Ronaldo. Different eras, different circumstances, but every single one of them came within touching distance of the Emirates. And if one or two of those transfers had gone differently, Arsenal's entire history may have changed forever. So which signing do you think would have had the biggest impact? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more football what-ifs and alternative football universes.